Welcome to Warhammer 40k 8th edition Battle Report 40, 1500 points, Death Guard versus Space Wolves. This will be the chapter-approved Eternal War mission, Dominate and Destroy, and we will be rolling for a random map deployment today. Let's begin by taking a quick look around the board at where the objective markers have been placed. Beginning in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed right here, next to this ruin. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed up here, next to this crater. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed over here, next to this crater. On the other side of the board, in this 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed up here, next to this crater. In this middle 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed right here, next to this crater. And finally, in the 6th 2 foot by 2 foot section, the objective marker has been placed right here, next to this crater. Now we will roll for the map deployment, getting a 4, which is Hammer and Anvil. So on a roll of a 1, 2, or a 3, the Death Guard will begin to deploy on the left part of the board, and the Space Wolves will deploy on the right. On a 4, 5, or 6, it'll be the opposite, so Death Guard will deploy in the right, and the Space Wolves will deploy in the left section. And here's the roll. Rolling a 2, so the Death Guard will begin to deploy in the left section, and the Space Wolves will deploy in the right section. Now on a roll of a 1, 2, or a 3, the Death Guard will begin to deploy first, and on a 4, 5, or 6, the Space Wolves will begin to deploy first. Rolling a 5, and so the Space Wolves will begin to deploy first. We will be back after the deployment. The deployment is now finished. The Space Wolves began to deploy first, and they also finished deploying first, which means they will get +1 to the roll-off to determine who goes first. Let's take a quick look around the board at where each army placed all of their units. Beginning with the Space Wolves deployment, we have the squad of Grey Hunters with Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader. Right behind them is the Warlord, the Wolfguard Battle Leader, the first Repulsor with a squad of Aggressors and a Primaris Wolf Priest embarked inside. The first squad of 5 Intercessors, the second squad of 5 Intercessors, and finally the second Repulsor with the second squad of Aggressors and second Primaris Wolf Priest embarked inside. Moving over to the Death Guard deployment, we have the first Plague Burst Crawler, the Warlord, which is the Demon Prince of Nurgle, the second Plague Burst Crawler, the first squad of 10 Poxwalkers, the Chaos Land Raider with the Lord of Contagion, Plague Surgeon, and squad of Plague Marines embarked inside, the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, and finally the second squad of 10 Poxwalkers. And so now we will roll off to determine who will go first. The Space Wolves, who get +1 to the roll-off, since they finished deploying first, will be the gold and blue dice, and the Death Guard, who will not have a modifier, will be the white dice. And here's the roll. And both roll 1s, but because the Space Wolves get +1 to their roll, they get a result of 2, which means that the Space Wolves will go first, and this will mean that the Death Guard will get an opportunity to attempt to seize the initiative. And so here's the seize the initiative roll, which they fail with a 5. And of course, a reminder to check out the pregame show, which was released at the beginning of the group, in order to get a full overview of both armies with all of the war gear that they are bringing. Link for the pregame show will be in the description down below. And so with that out of the way, let's move into Space Wolves Turn 1. Going into Space Wolves Turn 1, a reminder that the Space Wolves have 8 command points available, and the Death Guard have 9 command points available. Going into the movement phase, the first Repulsor is going to move up to 10 inches. The second Repulsor will also move up to 10 inches. The squad of Grey Hunters will remain still. The Wolfguard Battle Leader will remain still. The first squad of 5 Intercessors will remain still. Finally, the second squad of 5 Intercessors will remain still. Going into the shooting phase, we will begin with this first Repulsor, which will fire its 2 Iron Hail Heavy Stubbers into this squad of 10 Poxwalkers, which are visible and within 36-inch range. And then the Repulsor will fire everything else that it has into this Plague Burst Crawler on the left. 6 shots from the 2 Iron Hail Heavy Stubbers, getting 5 hits. resulting in 2 wounds. 6-up armor save, thanks to being obscured by the ruin, but the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber is -1 AP, so the Poxwalkers will not have an armor save. And both disgustingly resilient tests were failed. So 2 Poxwalkers will be killed off, leaving 8 left alive in the squad. And now for all of the various weapons firing from the repulsor into the Plague Burst Crawler, beginning with the Last Talon and the Twin Last Cannon, which will be fired together, because both weapons are in range and they have the exact same profile when it comes to strength, AP, and damage. So 4 shots total, getting 2 hits, resulting in 2 wounds, passing one of the 2 5-up invulnerable saves. The strike results in 2 damage, and the Plague Burst Crawler fails both disgustingly resilient rolls. So this Plague Burst Crawler will fall from 12 starting wounds down to 10. The 2 Crackstorm grenade launchers will fire with 1 shot apiece, getting 2 hits. Both fail to wound, needing 5s. Finally, the 5 Fragstorm grenade launchers will fire D6 shots apiece, getting a total of 18 shots, resulting in 12 hits, obtaining 3 wounds, passing 2 of the 3-up armor saves, and failing the 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll. So the Plague Burst Crawler will fall from 10 wounds down to 9. The second repulsor will now fire its 2 Iron Hail Heavy Stubbers into the squad of 8 Poxwalkers, and the repulsor will fire everything else into the Chaos Land Raider, beginning with the 2 Iron Hail Heavy Stubbers with 6 shots total, getting 3 hits, resulting in 3 wounds. 6-up armor save, thanks to being obscured by the ruin, but thanks to -1 AP from the Iron Hail Heavy Stubber, they will not get an armor save. And the Poxwalkers pass 2 of the 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls. So 1 more Poxwalker will go down, leaving 7 left alive in the squad. Now for the various weapons being fired into the Chaos Land Raider. Just like with the first repulsor, we will fire the Last Talon and Twin Last Cannon together for 4 shots total, getting 3 hits, resulting in only 1 wound, but the Space Wolves will use 1 command point, going from 8 down to 7, for a command reroll in order to reroll the 2. Still failing to get any more wounds, so only 1 wound total. And the Chaos Land Raider fails its 5-up armor save, which results in only 2 damage being dealt. So the Chaos Land Raider will fall from 16 starting wounds down to 14. 2 Crackstorm grenade launchers with 1 shot apiece, and both fail to hit. Finally, the 5 Fragstorm grenade launchers with D6 shots apiece, getting 14 shots total, resulting in 8 hits, obtaining only 1 wound, which passes the 2-up armor save. Quick interjection here a moment. We'll get back to the shooting phase right afterwards, but I just wanted to say that I've been trying out a new way of filming the shooting phase, and it really didn't feel comfortable to me. I really didn't like it. So from this point on, we're going to go back to the old way of how I filmed the shooting phase, which was far more comfortable and easier for me to film. So apologies about that. And that's why for the rest of this game and the rest of the group, the shooting phase is going to seem a little different from what we just got done watching. Thanks. This first squad of 5 intercessors is going to fire everything that they have into the Chaos Land Raider. 5 shots from the Stalker bolt rifles, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 6s, getting 1 wound. -2 AP, so 1 4-up armor save, which fails. So the Chaos Land Raider is going to fall from 14 wounds down to 13. Next, the second squad of 5 intercessors will fire everything that they have into the Chaos Land Raider. 5 shots from the Stalker bolt rifles hitting on 3s, getting only 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 6s, getting 1 wound. Minus 2 AP, so 1 4-up armor save, which fails again. So the Chaos Land Raider is going to fall from 13 wounds down to 12. And finally, because one of the repulsors is in the way blocking line of sight, the Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader is going to fire its Cyclone Missile Launcher into this squad of 7 Poxwalkers. And it will fire 2 crack missile shots, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit, wounding on a 2, rerolling 1s thanks to the Wolfguard Battle Leader, and getting a wound. Minus 2 AP, so no armor save, even though he's obscured by the ruin. And it will do D6 damage, and it will do just 1 damage. So 1 5-up Disgustingly Resilient roll, which fails. So 1 more Poxwalker is killed off, leaving 6 left alive in the squad. Going into the assault phase, there are no charges to declare, which means going into the fight phase, there are no fights to resolve. And going into the morale phase, this squad of Poxwalkers is mindless, so they do not have to take morale tests. At the end of the player turn, the Space Wolves are currently controlling 2 objective markers, which means they will gain 2 victory points for this turn. And so at the end of Space Wolves turn 1, the score currently sits at 2 victory points for the Space Wolves and 0 victory points for the Death Guard. Going into Death Guard turn 1, a reminder that the Death Guard have 9 command points available, and the Space Wolves have 7 command points available. Going into the movement phase, this squad of 6 Poxwalkers will remain still. This squad of 10 Poxwalkers will also remain still. The Plague Burst Crawler that is down to 9 wounds will also remain still. The fully healthy Plague Burst Crawler will move up to 9 inches. The Demon Prince of Nurgle, who is the Warlord, will move up to 8 inches. The Plague Marine Squad, the Plague Surgeon, and the Lord of Contagion will all disembark from the Chaos Land Raider. The squad of 7 Plague Marines will now move up to 5 inches. The Lord of Contagion will now move up to 4 inches. The Plague Surgeon will now move up to 5 inches. The Chaos Land Raider will now move up to 10 inches. And finally, the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will move up to 12 inches. Going into the Psychic phase, we will begin with the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings attempting to manifest Smite onto this repulsor. And Smite has a warp charge value of 5, and it passes with a 7. And it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. But the Space Wolves will use the stratagem Armor of Contempt for 1 command point, bringing them from 7 down to 6. Use this stratagem when a Space Wolves vehicle from your army suffers a mortal wound. Roll a d6 for that mortal wound and each other mortal wound inflicted on this model for the rest of the phase. On a 5-up, that mortal wound is ignored and has no effect. So rolling 2 5-ups, passing 1 and failing 1. So the repulsor will only take 1 mortal wound, falling from 16 starting wounds down to 15. Finally, the Demon Prince of Nurgle, who is the Warlord, will attempt to manifest Miasma of Pestilence onto the Plague Burst Crawler that is down to 9 wounds. And Miasma of Pestilence has a warp charge value of 6, and it fails with a 4. However, the Death Guard are going to use 1 command point, going from 9 down to 8, for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll, and it will pass with a 7. So until the start of the next Death Guard Psychic phase, the Space Wolves must subtract 1 from all hit rolls that target that Plague Burst Crawler. Going into the shooting phase, we will begin with this Plague Burst Crawler, the one that moved, which will fire its Heavy Slugger into this squad of 5 Intercessors, and then it will fire its Plague Burst Mortar and its 2 Entropy Cannons into this fully healthy repulsor. And the Death Guard are going to use the stratagem Blasphemous Machines for 1 command point, bring them from 8 down to 7. Use this stratagem just before Death Guard vehicle attacks in the shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, that vehicle can ignore the penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons, or for advancing and firing assault weapons. So starting with the Heavy Slugger, 4 shots hitting on 4s thanks to the stratagem, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince. Not that that helped, getting only 1 hit. Strength 5 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on a 3, and it wounds. 1 3-up armor save thanks to +1 from the Crater, but -1 thanks to the Heavy Slugger, and it passes. Now for the Plague Burst Mortar, which will do D6 shots, getting 5 shots, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, and here's the 1 reroll, getting 4 hits total. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 4s, but rerolling all failed wound rolls thanks to being a plague weapon and being within 7 inches of the Warlord, who has the Warlord trait Arch Contaminator, which states reroll all failed wound rolls when resolving attacks made with a plague weapon for any friendly Death Guard units within 7 inches of your Warlord. So luckily, rerolling all 4, but still only getting 1 wound. -2 AP means 1 5-up armor save, which fails, and it will do D3 damage, and it will do 2 damage. So the Repulsor will fall from 16 starting wounds down to 14. Finally, 2 shots from the Entropy Cannons hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, and here's the reroll, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 4s, getting 1 wound and 1 fail, but the Death Guard will use 1 command point going from 7 down to 6 for a command reroll to reroll the 2. And here's the reroll, still failing to wound. -4 AP, so the Repulsor will not get an armor save, and it will do D6 damage, and it will do 6 damage. So the Repulsor will fall from 14 wounds down to 8. The Chaos Land Raider is going to fire its Combi Flamer and its Twin Heavy Bolter at the squad of 5 intercessors sitting on the objective marker, and then the Chaos Land Raider will fire its 2 Twin Last Cannons into the Repulsor that is down to 8 wounds. Starting with the Combi Flamer, which is only going to fire the bolt gun portion, so 1 shot hitting on a 3, and it hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on a 4, and it wounds. 1 2-up armor save thanks to the Crater, which passes. 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, getting 4 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 5th hit. Strength 5 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s. Getting 4 wounds, +1 armor save thanks to the Crater, but -1 AP from the Twin Heavy Bolter, so 4 3-up armor saves, passing 3 and failing 1. So 1 regular intercessor will fall from 2 starting wounds down to 1 left. And finally, the 4 shots from the 2 Twin Last Cannons into the Repulsor, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting a 3rd hit. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 3s, obtaining only 1 wound. -3 AP, so 1 6-up armor save, which fails. And it will do D6 damage, and it will do 4 damage. So the Repulsor will fall from 8 wounds down to 4 left. The Plague Burst Crawler that is down to 9 wounds will now fire its Heavy Slugger into this squad of 5 intercessors, and then it will fire its 2 Entropy Cannons and its Plague Burst Mortar into this Repulsor to try to finish it off. Beginning with the 4 shots from the Heavy Slugger, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. 1 3-up armor save, which passes. Now for the 2 shots from the Entropy Cannons into the Repulsor, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince. And here's the reroll, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 4s, getting 2 wounds. -4 AP, so no armor save on the Repulsor, and they do D6 damage apiece. And it only does 3 damage. Could have done a max of 12, and it does 3 damage. which means that the repulsor will only fall from 4 wounds down to 1 left and will survive. And this is why we declared the Plague Burst Mortar against the repulsor, just in case this happened. So now D6 shots from the Plague Burst Mortar, which will do 2 shots. Hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on a 4, rerolling all fails, and getting a wound. But only -2 AP, which means the repulsor has a 5-up armor save, which it fails. But the Space Wolves will use 1 command point going from 6 down to 5 for a command reroll, since they haven't used one of those in this shooting phase yet, in order to reroll the armor save, and they still fail with a 2. And so it will do D3 damage, not that it matters, would have done 3. And so that will finish off the final wound from the repulsor, which means that we will roll a dice, and on a 6 it explodes, and it will not. Not that it would have mattered, as there are no units within 6 inches of that repulsor. So the squad of 3 aggressors and the Primaris Wolf Priest have emergency disembarked out front, and so now the repulsor can lose its final wound and be removed from the battlefield. And that is First Blood. And because that was an emergency disembarkation, we do need to roll a dice for each model, and any rolls of 1 will cause models to be slain, and there are no 1s rolled. The last unit to fire in the shooting phase will be this squad of Plague Marines, which will fire the 2 bolt guns and 3 plasma guns in rapid fire range, thanks to Death Guard special rules, into the repulsor that is down to 15 wounds. Starting with the 2 bolt guns in rapid fire range means 4 shots total, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince. And here's the reroll, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 6s and failing to wound. The 3 plasma guns will all fire supercharged shots, so beginning with the Plague Champion, 2 shots hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Regular plasma gun number 1, 2 shots hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 hit and a fail. And regular plasma gun number 2, 2 shots hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. So 5 hits total. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 4s and getting a very nice 4 wounds, -3 AP, so 4 6-up armor saves, failing all 4, and they are 2 damage apiece. So the repulsor will fall from 15 wounds down to 7 left. Going into the assault phase, there are no charges to declare, which means going into the fight phase, there are no fights to resolve, and going into the morale phase, there are no morale tests to take. And so at the end of the player turn, the Death Guard are currently controlling 4 objective markers, which means that they will gain 4 victory points this turn. And so at the end of Death Guard turn 1, the score currently sits at 5 victory points for the Death Guard, thanks to First Blood, and 2 victory points for the Space Wolves. Going into Space Wolves turn 2, a reminder that the Space Wolves have 5 command points available, and the Death Guard have 6 command points available. Going into the movement phase, the squad of Grey Hunters sitting on this objective marker will remain still. The Warlord, the Wolfguard battle leader, will also remain still. The first squad of 5 Intercessors will remain still. And the second squad of 5 Intercessors sitting on this objective marker will also remain still. This squad of 3 Aggressors will move up to 5 inches. The Primaris Wolf Priest will move up to 6 inches. The squad of 3 Aggressors and the Primaris Wolf Priest embarked inside of this repulsor with 7 wounds will disembark out in front. The squad of 3 Aggressors will now move up to 5 inches. Now the Primaris Wolf Priest will move up to 6 inches. Finally, the repulsor will move up to 5 inches. Going into the shooting phase, the repulsor that is down to 7 wounds will fire its 2 Iron Hail Heavy Stubbers into this squad of 6 Poxwalkers. It will fire its Last Talon and Twin Last Cannon into the Chaos Land Raider, and it will fire its 2 Crackstorm Grenade Launchers and 5 Fragstorm Grenade Launchers into the squad of 7 Plague Marines. Beginning with the 2 Iron Hail Heavy Stubbers, 6 shots hitting on 4s. Now that he's down to 7 wounds, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 3 means wounding on 3s. Getting 2 wounds. Minus 1 AP, so no armor save, even though the Poxwalkers are obscured by the ruin. So 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, and failing both. So 2 Poxwalkers will be killed off, leaving 4 left alive in the squad. Now for the Last Talon and the Twin Last Cannon into the Chaos Land Raider. 4 shots total, hitting on 4s, getting 3 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds and 1 fail. Minus 3 AP, so 2 5-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 1. And so the Death Guard are going to use 1 command point, going from 6 down to 5, for a command reroll to reroll the 2. And here's the reroll, still failing to pass. So it will do D6 damage, and it will do 5 damage. So the Chaos Land Raider will fall from 12 wounds down to 7. 2 shots from the Crackstorm Grenade Launchers, hitting on 4s. Getting 1 hit. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. 5 D6 shots from the Fragstorm Grenade Launchers, getting only 14 shots. Hitting on 4s, getting 7 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds. No AP, so 2 2-up armor saves thanks to the crater, and passing both. Now this squad of 3 aggressors are going to fire their Flamestorm gauntlets into the squad of Plague Marines. And each aggressor has 2 D6 shots, so 6 D6 shots total. And that is awful. Well below average, getting only 12 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 12 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s. And all 12 fail to wound. Wow. The Primaris Wolf Priest will fire his Absolver Bolt Pistol into the Plague Marines. 1 shot hitting on a 3, and it hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 4, and it fails to wound. This squad of 5 intercessors will fire their Stalker Bolt Rifles into the squad of 7 Plague Marines. 5 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 2 wounds. Minus 2 AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 2 4-up armor saves, and passing both. Now this squad of 5 intercessors will fire their Stalker Bolt Rifles into the squad of 7 Plague Marines. 5 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. 1 4-up armor save, which passes. The Wolf Guard Terminator Pack Leader will fire his Cyclone Missile Launcher into the Chaos Land Raider. 2 crack missile shots, hitting on 3s, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s thanks to the Wolf Guard Battle Leader, getting 1 wound and 1 fail. But the Space Wolves are going to use 1 command point, going from 5 down to 4, for a command reroll to reroll the 3. And here's the reroll. Still failing to wound. Minus 2 AP, so 1 4-up armor save, which passes. The Primaris Wolf Priest over on this side will throw a crack grenade into the fully healthy Plague Burst Crawler. 1 shot hitting on 3, and it fails to hit. Finally, the 3 aggressors will fire their Flamestorm gauntlets into the fully healthy Plague Burst Crawler. 6 D6 shots, and that's a lot better, getting 21 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 21 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 6s, getting 4 wounds. No AP, so 4 3-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 3. And they are 1 damage piece, so 3 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls. And failing all 3 of those as well. So the fully healthy Plague Burst Crawler will fall from 12 starting wounds down to 9. Going into the assault phase, there are multiple charges to declare. First is that this Primaris Wolf Priest will declare a charge into the Plague Burst Crawler. Second, the squad of 3 aggressors will also declare a charge solely into this Plague Burst Crawler. Over on this side, the Primaris Wolf Priest will declare a multi-charge into both the Lord of Contagion and the squad of 7 Plague Marines. And the squad of aggressors will declare a charge solely into the Plague Marines. And we will begin over here with the Primaris Wolf Priest. So first, we will resolve Overwatch from the Plague Marines, and one of the 2 Plague Marines armed with Flails of Corruption will throw a crack grenade, hitting on a 6, re-rolling 1s, and it fails to hit. 2 bolt guns in rapid fire range, 4 shots total, hitting on 6s, re-rolling 1s, getting 2 re-rolls. Still failing to hit. And now the 3 plasma guns will fire, and they will all fire supercharged shots, beginning with the Plague Champion. 2 shots, hitting on 6s, re-rolling 1s, getting 1 re-roll, and still rolling a 1. So the Plague Champion will be slain and killed off. So the Plague Champion will be removed, leaving 6 models left alive in the squad. Now for regular plasma gun number 1, failing to hit and getting a re-roll. Failing to hit, but no more 1s. And finally, Plasma Gun number 2, getting the exact same roll again, failing to hit and a reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to hit. So now for the charge range, getting 5 inches. And while he can make it into combat against the Lord of Contagion without charging through a crater, he would fail the charge into the Plague Marines if he stuck with this. So the Space Wolves are going to use 1 command point, going from 4 down to 3 for a command reroll to re-roll the 1, and hoping for something bigger, and it increases to an 8. And so after subtracting 2 inches for charging through a crater, 6 inches is still more than enough to make it into combat with both. So now this squad of aggressors will charge into the Plague Marines. No more Overwatch since the Plague Marines are already engaged. So here's the charge range, rolling double 1s, which definitely fails. And the Space Wolves cannot use another command reroll, so the aggressors will fail to make it in for sure. Moving back over to this side, we will begin with the Primaris Wolf Priest into the Plague Burst Crawler. Starting with the Heavy Slugger, 4 shots hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 hit and 1 reroll, and here's the reroll, still failing to hit. Strength 5 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on a 3, and it wounds. Minus 1 AP, so 1 4-up armor save, which fails. So the Primaris Wolf Priest will fall from 5 starting wounds down to 4. The Plague Burst Mortar will not be able to shoot because the Primaris Wolf Priest is too close. So finally, we have the 2 shots from the Entropy Cannons hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 reroll, and here's the reroll, still failing to hit. Now for the charge range, getting 6 inches. And unfortunately for the Space Wolves, the Primaris Wolf Priest is about a 1/4 of an inch too far away for a 6-inch charge to make it after subtracting 2 because of the crater. He would have need to roll a 7 in order to get a 5-inch charge to make it within an inch. So that is a failed charge, which means that now the aggressors will attempt to charge in, but the Plague Burst Crawler will get another chance to Overwatch. Beginning with the Heavy Slugger, 4 shots hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, and the 1 reroll, which will hit. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 on the aggressors means wounding on a 4, which fails to wound. Plague Burst Mortar once again will not be able to fire, so just the 2 shots from the Entropy Cannons hitting on 6s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls, still failing to hit. And now for the charge range, getting 8 inches. And after subtracting 2, 6 inches is more than enough to make it into combat. Going into the fight phase, we will begin with this Primaris Wolf Priest, who will place all of his attacks onto the Lord of Contagion. And the Space Wolves are going to use the stratagem Seeking a Saga for 1 command point, going from 3 down to 2. Use this stratagem at the beginning of the fight phase. Choose a Space Wolves character from your army that is within 1 inch of an enemy unit with a greater power rating than that character. You can reroll failed wound rolls for attacks made by that character against the enemy unit. And so this will be used on the Primaris Wolf Priest against the Lord of Contagion, because the Primaris Wolf Priest has a power rating of 6, and the Lord of Contagion has a power rating of 7. So the Primaris Wolf Priest has 4 attacks with its Crozius Arcanum against the Lord of Contagion, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s thanks to himself, and the special ability Oath of War. And here's the reroll. Getting 4 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, re-rolling thanks to the stratagem. And here's the 2 rerolls. Getting all 4 wounds. -1 AP, so 4 3-up armor saves, passing all 4. The Death Guard will choose not to use the stratagem counteroffensive, so we will continue with Space Wolf charging units, and the only unit left on the Space Wolf side is the squad of aggressors, placing their attacks into the Plague Burst Crawler. 3 attacks apiece with their Flamestorm Gauntlets, which means they have to subtract 1 from hit rolls, but they get to add 1 to hit rolls on the turn in which they charge, thanks to the ability Hunters Unleashed. So 9 attacks hitting on 3s, with the modifiers canceling themselves out, and re-rolling failed hit rolls thanks to being within 6 inches of a Primaris Wolf Priest. And here's the re-rolls. Getting all 9 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 4s. Getting 6 wounds. -3 AP, so 6 5-up and vulnerable saves. Passing 1, but failing 5. And they do D3 damage apiece. And that is 10 damage total. However, the Space Wolves are going to use 1 command point, going from 2 down to 1 left, for a command reroll to reroll one of those 2s in hopes to roll better on the D3. And here's the reroll. And they will get 1 more for a total of 11 damage. So 11 5-up disgusting and resilient rolls, passing 4 and failing 7. So the Plague Burst Crawler will fall from 9 remaining wounds down to 2, but will survive. And now the Plague Burst Crawler will attack back against the aggressors. 3 attacks hitting on 6s, re-rolling 1s and failing to hit. Next, the Lord of Contagion will place his attacks onto the Primaris Wolf Priest. 4 attacks with the Man Reaper, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, and 6s generate additional attacks, and we have a cocked dice right there. Here's the cocked dice, which does mean that we have 2 6s, so 2 additional attacks. And here's the 2 additional, both of which hit, so 6 hits total out of 4 attacks. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s. And because it is a plague weapon, the 1s do get to be rerolled. So getting 1 additional wound for 5 wounds total. -3 AP, so 5 4-up and vulnerable saves. Passing 2 and failing 3, and the Space Wolves have already used a command reroll in this fight phase. And they are D3 damage apiece, and that is 7 damage total, which is more than enough to finish off the 5 starting wounds on the Primaris Wolf Priest, and the Primaris Wolf Priest is killed off. And now the Lord of Contagion will consolidate. Going into the morale phase, this squad of Poxwalkers lost 2 models this turn. However, they have the Mindless special ability, so they do not have to take morale checks. This squad of Plague Marines lost its champion this turn, but regular Plague Marines have a leadership of 7, and so it is impossible for them to fail. At the end of the player turn, thanks to the squad of aggressors charging into the Plague Burst Crawler and taking control of that objective marker, the Space Wolves are currently controlling 3 total objective markers, which means they will gain 3 victory points this turn. And so at the end of Space Wolves turn 2, we currently have a score of 5 victory points for the Space Wolves and 5 victory points for the Death Guard. Going into Death Guard turn 2, a reminder that the Death Guard have 5 command points available, and the Space Wolves have 1 command point available. Going into the movement phase, this squad of 4 Poxwalkers is going to remain still. This squad of 10 Poxwalkers will also remain still. The Plague Burst Crawler that is now down to 2 wounds will fall back out of combat up to 4 inches. The Plague Burst Crawler that is down to 9 wounds will now move up to 9 inches. The Demon Prince, who is the Warlord, will now move up to 8 inches. The Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will now move up to 12 inches. The Lord of Contagion is going to move up to 4 inches. The squad of 6 Plague Marines will remain still. The Plague Surgeon is going to move up to 5 inches. Finally, the Chaos Land Raider, which is now down to 7 wounds, will move up to 5 inches. Going into the Psychic phase, we will begin with the Demon Prince of Nurgle attempting to manifest Smite onto this squad of aggressors. And Smite has a warp charge value of 5, and it passes with a 6. So it will do D3 mortal wounds, and it will do 2 mortal wounds. And aggressors only have 2 wounds apiece, so 1 aggressor is killed off, leaving 2 left alive in the squad. Now the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will attempt to manifest Blades of Putrefaction onto the Lord of Contagion. And Blades of Putrefaction has a warp charge value of 5, and that will pass with a 6 as well. Going into the shooting phase, we will begin with the squad of 6 Plague Marines, firing 2 bolt guns, 2 plasma guns, and 1 crack grenade into the squad of 3 aggressors. Starting with the crack grenade, 1 shot hitting on a 3, re-rolling 1s thanks to the Demon Prince, and they are actually just over 6 inches away from the Demon Prince now, so they will not get to re-roll. So that fails to hit. The 2 plasma guns in rapid fire range will fire 4 shots total, and they will be standard shots, since they aren't going to get a chance to re-roll hit rolls of 1, so they're not going to take the risk at losing more guys. So 4 shots can be fired all together, hitting on 3s. And a good thing they didn't fire supercharged shots. Getting 3 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s. Getting 3 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 3 6-up armor saves. Passing 1 and failing 2. Only 1 damage apiece, however, so only 1 aggressor is killed off, leaving 2 left alive in the squad. Now for the 4 shots from the 2 bolt guns, hitting on 3s. Really wishing we could re-roll 1s at this point. Getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 5 and failing to wound. So now the Plague Surgeon will throw a crack grenade into the squad of 2 aggressors. 1 shot hitting on a 3 and it hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 3 and it fails to wound. The Chaos Land Raider is going to fire its Twin Heavy Bolter, its Combi Flamer, and its Havoc Launcher, which I forgot to fire in the previous Death Guard shooting phase, into the squad of 2 aggressors, and it will fire its 2 Twin Last Cannons into the repulsor. And we will begin with the 2 Twin Last Cannons. 4 shots, hitting on 4s now that it's down to 7 wounds. Getting 2 hits. Strength 9 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 3s. Getting 2 wounds. Minus 3 AP, so 2 6-up armor saves. Passing 1 and failing 1. And it will do D6 damage, and it will do 5 damage. So the repulsor will fall from 7 wounds down to 2 left. Now for the shots onto the squad of 2 aggressors, beginning with the Twin Heavy Bolter. 6 shots, hitting on 4s, getting 3 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 4s, failing to wound. Next will be the Combi Flamer, firing both profiles. So starting with the bolt gun portion in rapid fire range, 2 shots hitting on 5s because of being at 7 wounds and having to subtract 1 from hit rolls for firing both profiles, so failing to hit. But the Flamer will do D6 shots, getting 2 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 2 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. 1 3-up armor save, which fails. So the final regular aggressor will fall from 2 starting wounds down to 1. Now the Havoc Launcher will do D6 shots, getting just one shot, hitting on a 4, and it hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 4, and it fails to wound. The Plague Burst Crawler that is at 9 wounds will fire its Heavy Slugger and its 2 Entropy Cannons into the squad of 2 aggressors, and it will fire its Plague Burst Mortar across the map into the repulsor that is down to 2 wounds. And once again, the Death Guard are going to use the stratagem Blasphemous Machines for 1 command point, bring them from 5 down to 4. Use this stratagem just before a Death Guard vehicle attacks in the shooting phase. Until the end of the phase, this vehicle can ignore the penalties for moving firing heavy weapons, or for advancing and firing assault weapons. And we will begin with the Plague Burst Mortar. D6 shots, getting 3 shots. Hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting all 3 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 4s, rerolling all fails thanks to the Warlord, and his Warlord trait being nearby, getting 1 wound and 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls. Failing 1 and a cocked dice. So re-rolling the cocked dice, which will get a second wound. Minus 2 AP, so 2 5-up armor saves. Failing both. And they do D3 damage apiece, not that that matters. Getting a total of 3 damage, which will finish off the 2 remaining wounds on the repulsor. So does it explode on a 6? And it does not. So the second repulsor will lose its last 2 wounds and be killed off. Now for the Heavy Slugger into the squad of aggressors. 4 shots, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 1 hit. Strength 5 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on a 4, and it fails to wound. 2 shots from the Entropy Cannons, hitting on 4s, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting a wound and a fail. But the Death Guard are going to use 1 command point, going from 4 down to 3 for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll. Still failing to wound. Minus 4 AP, so the aggressors will not get an armor save, and it does D6 damage, and it only does 1 damage. So the last regular aggressor in this squad will fall from 2 starting wounds down to 1 left. Going into the assault phase, there are 4 charges to declare. First is this Demon Prince of Nurgle with Wings declaring a charge into the squad of 2 aggressors. Second will be the Lord of Contagion declaring a charge into the squad of 2 aggressors. Third will be the Plague Surgeon declaring a charge into the squad of 2 aggressors. And the fourth and final charge will be from the Demon Prince of Nurgle Warlord declaring a charge into the squad of 2 aggressors over here. And we will begin with the Warlord. So Overwatch from the 2 aggressors with their Flamestorm gauntlets. 4 D6 shots. And that's pretty bad, getting 9 shots total. This weapon automatically hits, so 9 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, getting 3 wounds. No AP, so 3 3-up armor saves. Passing 1 but failing 2. 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So this Demon Prince of Nurgle will fall from 8 wounds down to 7. And now for the charge range, getting 3 inches. And it's a very good thing for the Death Guard that the Demon Prince is only 1.5 inches away, because even after subtracting 2 inches for charging through the crater, that will still make it within 1 inch. Moving over to this combat, we will begin with the charge from the Demon Prince of Nurgle with Wings. Once again, 4 D6 shots from the 2 Flamestorm gauntlets, and only getting a little better with 11 shots. This weapon automatically hits, so 11 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s. Somehow doing worse than the other squad, however, getting only 2 wounds. The Demon Prince of Nurgle with Wings has the Suppurating Plate, so 2 2-up armor saves. And failing both. Should be titling these battle reports, How Badly Can I Roll Dice? But all is not lost for the Demon Prince yet. 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls, passing 1 and failing 1. So the Demon Prince of Nurgle with Wings will fall from 8 starting wounds down to 7. And here's the charge range, getting 10 inches, which will be more than enough. Now for the charge from the Lord of Contagion. And here's the charge range, getting 6 inches. No Overwatch, of course, because the aggressors are already engaged, so that will be more than enough. And finally, the charge from the Plague Surgeon into the aggressors. And here's the charge range. And he only gets 3 inches. And that will fail because he is charging through a crater. So the Death Guard are going to use 1 command point, going from 3 down to 2, for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll. Now getting 6 total inches. And after subtracting 2 for charging through a crater, 4 inches is more than enough to make it in. Going into the fight phase, we will begin with the Warlord Demon Prince of Nurgle, placing all of his attacks onto the squad of aggressors. However, first he will pile in. 7 attacks with the 2 sets of Malefic Talons against the aggressors, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, 6s generate additional attacks, getting 6 hits and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, getting all 7 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s. And that's pretty bad, getting only 3 wounds. But the Death Guard are going to use 1 command point, going from 2 down to 1, now that it's the fight phase, for a command reroll to reroll one of the fails. So here's the reroll, still failing to wound. Minus 2 AP, so 3 5-up armor saves, and failing all 3, and they are 2 damage apiece. So the regular aggressor will lose its last wound and be killed off, and the aggressor pack leader will also be killed off. The Demon Prince will now consolidate up to 3 inches. The Space Wolves only have 1 command point available, so they are not able to utilize the stratagem counteroffensive, which means we will continue with the Death Guard forces. And so the next unit to fight will be the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, placing his attacks onto the squad of 2 aggressors. 7 attacks from the 2 sets of Malefic Talons, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, 6s generate additional attacks, getting 7 hits and 1 additional attack. And here's the extra attack, getting an 8th hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 5 means wounding on 3s, getting 7 wounds. Minus 2 AP, so 7 5-up armor saves, passing 4 but failing 3. So the wounded aggressor will lose its last wound and be killed off, and the aggressor pack leader will lose both of its wounds and be killed off. And so now the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will consolidate up to 3 inches. Going into the morale phase, there are no morale tests to take. At the end of the player turn, the Death Guard are currently controlling 4 objective markers, which means they will gain an additional 4 victory points this turn. And so at the end of Death Guard turn 2, the score currently sits at 9 victory points for the Death Guard and 5 victory points for the Space Wolves. Going into Space Wolves turn 3, a reminder that the Space Wolves have 1 command point available, and the Death Guard also have 1 command point available. A quick note before we go into the Space Wolves movement phase. Normally, this is where I would have the Space Wolves concede, as they have very little left on the table and don't really have a chance at coming back in terms of victory points, especially considering the fact that at the end of the game we will be adding kill points into the mix. However, as I stated in the pre-game show, we will be playing each game at least through the end of Battle Round 3, unless an army is tabled, just to give each army a chance to have the best opportunity to try to win the game. But I just wanted to make it known that normally this is where I would concede for the Space Wolves, even though we are going to play it out at least for 1 more battle round. So going into the movement phase, this squad of 5 intercessors will remain still. This squad of 5 intercessors will also remain still. The squad of Grey Hunters will remain still. The Wolf Guard Battle Leader will also remain still. Finally, the Primaris Wolf Priest will move up to 6 inches. At the end of the movement phase, the Primaris Wolf Priest is going to heal himself. And he's only missing 1 wound, so he will go back up from 4 wounds to 5 starting wounds. Now going into the shooting phase, the Primaris Wolf Priest will throw a crack grenade into the Demon Prince of Nurgle. 1 shot hitting on a 3, and it hits. Strength 6 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on a 4, and it fails to wound. This Intercessor squad is not able to attack either Demon Prince of Nurgle with their Stalker bolt rifles because the Chaos Land Raider is closer than both of them, even though they are on opposite sides of the map. And so therefore, this squad of Intercessors will fire all 5 of their Stalker bolt rifles into this Plague Burst Crawler that is down to 2 wounds in an attempt to finish it off. 5 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 3 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 8 means wounding on 6s, failing to wound. This 5-man Intercessor squad, however, will be able to fire all 5 of their Stalker bolt rifles into the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, who is down to 7 wounds because it is the closest visible enemy unit. 5 shots, hitting on 3s, getting 5 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, getting 1 wound. Minus 2 AP, so 1 4-up armor save thanks to the separating plate, which fails. And it is 1 damage, so 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which passes. The Wolfguard battle leader is going to fire his Storm Bolter at full range into the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings. 2 shots, hitting on 3s. Getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on a 5, rerolling 1s thanks to himself, and failing to wound. This Grey Hunter squad is going to fire everything that they have into the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings, starting with 1 shot apiece from the 5 bolt guns and 2 shots from the 1 Storm Bolter, which all have the same profile and therefore can be fired together, for 7 shots total, hitting on 3s, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 wounds. No AP, so 3 2-up armor saves, passing 2 but failing 1. 1 5-up disgustingly resilient roll, which fails. So the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings will fall from 7 wounds down to 6. Finally, the Cyclone missile launcher will fire 2 crack missiles, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on a 3, and it fails to wound. Going into the assault phase, there's 1 charge to declare, which is the Primaris Wolf Priest declaring a charge into the Demon Prince of Nurgle, who is the Death Guard Warlord. No Overwatch, so here's the charge distance. Getting 6 inches. Even though he is charging through the crater, it is more than enough to make it in. So now going into the fight phase, we will begin with the Primaris Wolf Priest, who will pile in up to 3 inches. And he is now locked in combat with both the Demon Prince and the Plague Burst Crawler, who is down to 2 wounds. And the Space Wolves are going to use the stratagem once again, seeking a saga. For 1 command point, bring them from 1 down to 0. Use this stratagem at the beginning of the fight phase. Choose a Space Wolves character from your army that is within 1 inch of an enemy unit with a greater power rating than that character. You can reroll failed wound rolls for attacks made by that character against the enemy unit. And this will be used on the Primaris Wolf Priest against the Demon Prince. 4 attacks from the Primaris Wolf Priest with his Crozius Arcanum against the Demon Prince of Nurgle, hitting on 2s, re-rolling thanks to his special ability Oath of War, getting 2 hits, 2 re-rolls. And here's the re-rolls. Getting all 4 hits. Strength 5, thanks to the Crozius Arcanum against Toughness 6, means wounding on 5s. Re-rolling thanks to the stratagem, getting 2 wounds and 2 re-rolls. And here's the 2 re-rolls. Getting 1 additional wound for 3 wounds total. Minus 1 AP, so 3 4-up armor saves. Passing 2 and failing 1. 2 damage apiece, so 2 5-up disgustingly resilient rolls. Passing 1 and failing 1. So the Demon Prince of Nurgle will fall from 7 wounds down to 6. But now the Demon Prince will get to attack back. 7 attacks, with the 2 sets of Malefic Talons hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, 6s generate additional attacks, getting 6 hits and 1 re-roll. And here's the re-roll. Still failing to hit. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 4 wounds. Minus 2 AP, so 4-up honorable saves. Passing 2 and failing 2. And they are 2 damage apiece, so the Primaris Wolf Priest will fall from 5 starting wounds down to 1 left. It's a good thing he healed himself. So finally, the Plague Burst Crawler will also place attacks onto the Primaris Wolf Priest. 3 attacks, hitting on 6s, re-rolling 1s, and all fail to hit. So going into the morale phase, there are no morale tests to take. At the end of the player turn, the Space Wolves are currently controlling 2 objective markers, so they will gain an additional 2 victory points for this turn, which means that at the end of Space Wolves turn 3, the score currently sits at 7 victory points for the Space Wolves and 9 victory points for the Death Guard. Going into Death Guard turn 3, a reminder that the Death Guard have 1 command point available, and the Space Wolves have 0 command points available. Going into the movement phase, this squad of 4 Poxwalkers will remain still. This squad of 10 Poxwalkers will also remain still. The Plague Burst Crawler with 2 wounds left, who is locked in combat with the Primaris Wolf Priest, will remain locked in combat and remain still. The Demon Prince of Nurgle, who is the Warlord, will also stay still and remain locked in combat with the Primaris Wolf Priest. The Plague Burst Crawler with 9 wounds left, who is not currently locked in combat, will remain still. The squad of 6 Plague Marines will remain still. The Chaos Land Raider, which is down to 7 wounds, will move up to 5 inches. The Plague Surgeon will move up to 5 inches. The Lord of Contagion is going to move up to 4 inches, and he will also declare an advance, getting an additional 3 inches, so the Lord of Contagion will move up to 7 inches total. Finally, the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to move up to 12 inches. Going into the Psychic phase, the Demon Prince of Nurgle will attempt to manifest Smite onto the Primaris Wolf Priest. And Smite has a warp chart value of 5, and it passes with a 7. Not that it matters, but it does D3 mortal wounds, and it will do only 1 mortal wound. But that will finish off the final wound on the Primaris Wolf Priest, and he will be killed off. Finally, the Demon Prince of Nurgle with wings is going to attempt to manifest Blades of Putrefaction onto himself. And Blades of Putrefaction has a warp charge value of 5, and that will pass with an 11. Going into the shooting phase, this squad of 6 Plague Marines will fire everything that they can into this squad of 5 Intercessors, starting with both plasma guns firing supercharged shots. However, since they're only firing 1 shot apiece, we can do them at the same time. So 2 shots total, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit and 1-1. So one of the plasma guns is killed off, leaving 5 models left alive in the squad. However, the one that hit is Strength 8 instead of Strength 7, so wounding on a 2, and it wounds, minus 3 AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 1 5-up armor save, which fails. And thanks to being supercharged, it is 2 damage instead of 1, so 1 regular intercessor is killed off. Now for 2 bolt gun shots, hitting on 3s, getting 1 hit. Strength 4 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on a 4, and it fails to wound. This Plague Burst Crawler, which is at 9 wounds, is going to fire everything that it has into this squad of 5 intercessors. Beginning with 4 shots from the Heavy Slugger, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. Minus 1 AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 2 3-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 1. So that will finish off the last wound on the wounded intercessor, leaving 4 models left alive in the squad. 2 shots from the entropy cannons, hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, and getting 1 hit. Strength 8 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on a 2, and it wounds. Minus 4 AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 1 6-up armor save, which fails. And it will do D6 damage, and it will do 4 damage. But the damage does not carry over from model to model, so only 1 intercessor will be killed off. Now for the Plague Burst Mortar, which will do D6 shots, getting 4 shots. Hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, getting 3 hits. Strength 8 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 2s, rerolling, getting 3 wounds. Minus 2 AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 3 4-up armor saves, passing 2 and failing 1. And it will do D3 damage, and it will do just 1 damage. So 1 more regular intercessor will fall from 2 starting wounds down to 1. Now the Plague Burst Crawler that is down to only 2 wounds will fire everything that it has into this squad of 3 intercessors. Starting with 4 shots from the Heavy Slugger, hitting on 5s, rerolling 1s, now that he's down to 2 wounds, getting 2 hits. Strength 5 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 1 wound. minus 1 AP but plus 1 thanks to the crater for 1 3-up armor save, which passes. 2 shots from the entropy cannons hitting on 5s, failing to hit, and D6 shots from the plague burst mortar, getting 4 shots, hitting on 5s, rerolling 1s, getting 2 hits. Strength 8 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 2s, rerolling, getting 2 wounds. Minus 2 AP but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 2 4-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 1. And it will do D3 damage, not that that matters, doing only 1 damage anyways. But that will finish off the 1 remaining wound on the wounded intercessor, leaving only 2 left alive in the squad. Finally, the Chaos Land Raider will fire its Combi Flamer, its Twin Heavy Bolter, and its Havoc Launcher into the squad of 2 intercessors, and it will fire its 2 Twin Last Cannons into the squad of 4 intercessors. Beginning with the 2 Twin Last Cannons, 4 shots, hitting on 4s, getting 2 hits. Strength 9 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 2s, getting 2 wounds. Minus 3 AP but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 2 5-up armor saves, failing both. And they are D6 damage piece, but they have to be done 1 at a time because they could affect each other. So the first one will do 6, the second one will do 3. But the damage does not carry over, so only 2 regular intercessors are killed off, leaving 2 left alive in the squad. Now for the Combi Bolter, onto the other squad. It is not in rapid fire range, so only 1 shot hitting on a 4, and it fails to hit. The Havoc Launcher will do D6 shots, getting 5 shots, hitting on 4s, getting 3 hits. Strength 5 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 3 wounds. No AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 3 2-up armor saves, passing 2 and failing 1. So the final regular intercessor will fall from 2 starting wounds down to 1 left. And finally, 6 shots from the Twin Heavy Bolter, hitting on 4s, getting 2 hits. Strength 5 versus toughness 4 means wounding on 3s, getting 2 wounds. Minus 1 AP, but plus 1 thanks to the crater, so 2 3-up armor saves, and failing both. So the final wound on the wounded intercessor is removed and he is killed off. And then the intercessor pack leader will fall from 2 starting wounds down to 1 left. Going into the assault phase, there's 1 charge to declare, which is the Demon Prince and Nurgle with Wings, declaring a charge solely into the squad of Grey Hunters. So we will begin with Overwatch, and the Grey Hunter pack leader will throw a crack grenade, hitting on a 6. Failing to hit. 4 Grey Hunters will fire bolt guns in rapid fire range, and the Wolfguard Terminator pack leader will contribute with his Storm Bolter for 12 shots total, hitting on 6s, getting 2 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s, failing to wound. And now the Cyclone Missile Launcher will fire 2 crack missiles, hitting on 6s, failing to hit. And here's the charge range, getting 8 inches. And even though he is going through the crater, that will still be more than enough to make it in. The Space Wolves Warlord, the Wolfguard Battle Leader, will now heroically intervene, which he is allowed to do up to 6 inches, thanks to the Space Wolves' ability Hunters Unleashed. And he will finish his heroic intervention like so. Going into the fight phase, thanks to the relic that is on the Wolfguard Battle Leader, the Armor of Russ, the Demon Prince of Nurgle with Wings will not be able to fight until all other units have fought. And so we will begin first with the Wolfguard Battle Leader piling in and fighting first. The Wolfguard Battle Leader has 4 attacks with its chainsword, hitting on 2s, getting 4 hits. Strength 4 versus toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s thanks to himself, getting 2 wounds, a fail, and 1 reroll. And here's the reroll, still failing to wound. No AP, so 2 2-up armor saves, passing 1 and failing 1. So 1 5-up disgusting resilient roll, which fails. So the Demon Prince will fall from 6 wounds down to 5, but then thanks to the separating plate on a 4-up, the wound that was saved will reflect back, and it does not. So now the Grey Hunters will all pile in and fight. The 4 regular Grey Hunters have 2 attacks apiece thanks to their chainswords. The Grey Hunter Pack Leader has 3 attacks thanks to his chainsword, and the Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader has 2 attacks base with his fists, for a grand total of 13 attacks, hitting on 2s since they were charged this turn. Getting 10 hits. Strength 4 versus Toughness 6 means wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s. Getting 2 wounds and 2 rerolls. And here's the rerolls. And this was a 6 that was knocked over to a 2, so all 4 wound. 4 2-up armor saves, passing 3 and failing 1, but the Death Guard will use their last command point going from 1 down to 0 for a command reroll to reroll the 1. And here's the reroll, so all 4 are passed. And because of that, on 4-ups they will reflect mortal wounds back, and 3 mortal wounds will be reflected back onto the Grey Hunters. So 3 regular Grey Hunters will be killed off, leaving 3 models left alive in that squad. And now the Demon Prince will get to attack, and all of his attacks will be going onto the Grey Hunters, because he did not declare a charge against the Wolfguard Battle Leader. 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, 6s generate additional attacks, getting 7 hits. Strength 7 versus Toughness 4 means wounding on 2s thanks to Blades of Putrefaction, which makes a difference, getting 6 wounds. And they are minus 2 AP, but these will have to be done somewhat separately because the saving throw between the Grey Hunters and the Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader are different. So rolling 2 at a time to start, 2 5-up armor saves, 1 fails, 1 passes, so the last regular Grey Hunter will go down. Now 1 at a time for the Grey Hunter Pack Leader, 1 5-up armor save, which passes, 1 5-up armor save, which fails. So the Grey Hunter Pack Leader is killed off, leaving only the Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader alive from the squad, and there's only 2 left after all of that. So 2 3-up invulnerable saves, passing both. Going into the morale phase, there are multiple morale tests to take, beginning with this Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader, who lost the other 5 members of his squad this turn. And he has a leadership of 8, so he will fail on a 4-up. And he does fail. So, thanks to the ability And They Shall Know No Fear, he does get to reroll the failed morale test. And here's the reroll, and he barely passes with a 3. So the Wolfguard Terminator Pack Leader will survive. This does mean that the Grey Hunter squad is technically not wiped out yet. This squad of Intercessors lost 3 models this turn. The Intercessor Pack Leader has a leadership of 8, so they could fail on a 6, and they pass, so no further models are removed. Finally, this Intercessor squad lost 4 models this turn, and the Pack Leader has a leadership of 8, so they will fail on a 5 or a 6, but they will pass. At the end of the player turn, the Death Guard are currently controlling 4 objective markers, and so they will gain an additional 4 victory points for this turn. And so at the end of Death Guard turn 3, the score currently sits at 13 victory points for the Death Guard and 7 victory points for the Space Wolves. Going into Space Wolves turn 4, a reminder that the Space Wolves have 0 command points available, and the Death Guard also have 0 command points available. And so at this point, the Space Wolves are going to concede the game. Because of this, the Death Guard will achieve Line Breaker thanks to the Demon Prince and Nurgle with Wings, which will bring them from 13 victory points up to 14, which is of course double the score of the Space Wolves at 7. But we also have to add in kill points now that the game is officially over, and the Space Wolves failed to fully kill off a single Death Guard unit, so they will achieve 0 kill points, but the Death Guard fully killed off 6 Space Wolf units, including both of the repulsors, so they will gain an additional 6 victory points thanks to those 6 kill points, which means that we will end up with a final score of 7 victory points for the Space Wolves and 20 victory points for the Death Guard, with a major victory for the Death Guard thanks to a Space Wolves concession in Space Wolves turn 4. And so now that the game is over, I can give 1 or 2 of my final thoughts on this particular game. First and foremost is the main reason for the concession, of course, which should be fairly obvious considering the fact that the Space Wolves literally have 5 infantry models left on the table and that's it. The Space Wolves are incredibly close to being tabled. There's just nothing that the Space Wolves can do at this point in order to stop that. They have no command points, they have a third of the victory points that the Death Guard do, and they have nothing in terms of firepower that can really deal with big units. And especially now that the Wolfguard Terminator pack leader, who, by the way, is very lucky that he actually made it through that morale phase, considering the fact that he failed the test the first time and then barely passed it the second. Since he's now locked in combat, if he were to fall out of combat, he would not be able to fire a Cyclone missile launcher, which is the only weapon that actually has a prayer of doing damage to the Chaos Land Raider or the Plague Burst Crawlers. And so pretty much the Death Guard are going to have a free pass to walk all over the Space Wolves if the game were to continue. And continuing along with that thought, I think the Space Wolves are very lucky they did not lose more units than they actually did. The Grey Hunter squad was very close to being wiped out. The only model left is the Wolfguard Terminator pack leader, as mentioned before. But the fact that this Intercessor pack leader is down to 1 wound and he's the only model left alive in his squad is quite miraculous, as well, considering the fact that 2 Plague Burst Crawlers fired everything they had into that squad, and the Chaos Land Raider fired a decent amount of firepower into them as well. So the fact that they weren't wiped out is actually quite miraculous. I think the first major issue that the Space Wolves had in this particular game was the fact that both of the No Man's Land objective markers, this one and the one over by the Plague Burst Crawlers, ended up on the Death Guard side of the deployment. But that's what happens when the objective markers are placed before the random map is determined. Sometimes you get deployments like that. Unfortunately for the Space Wolves, the Death Guard are very difficult to knock back off of objectives, and so in this particular case, it did not work for them. It probably would have been a slightly more interesting game from that perspective had the Space Wolves and the Death Guard switched deployment zones, because to watch the Death Guard move across the board and try to knock the Space Wolves back off of objectives might have been a little bit more fair. The second major thing that the Space Wolves really had go against them in this game was they had some pretty awful dice rolls. That one aggressor squad getting only 12 shots off of a 6d6 dice roll and then failing to wound with all 12? Apparently that dice roll was just par for the course. Also, the fact that the other aggressor squad was unable to finish off the one Plague Burst Crawler in close combat really didn't help, because it gave the Death Guard a chance to pull that Plague Burst Crawler back and then a turn later have it attempt to fire again. The Poxwalkers did exactly what they were supposed to do. They sat there and held objectives and were very difficult to kill. The Plague Marines did what they were supposed to do in deploying and holding an objective marker in no man's land or enemy territory. And in fact, the Space Wolves failed to do any damage to the Plague Marines. The only reason they're missing 2 models is because they killed themselves with their plasma guns. The only thing I maybe would have done differently from the Death Guard side is have this Demon Prince and Nurgle with Wings declare a multi-charge against the Grey Hunter squad and the Wolfguard Battle Leader, so that when the Wolfguard Battle Leader piled in with Heroic Intervention, he could have placed some attacks onto the Wolfguard Battle Leader and potentially secured Slay the Warlord. Although in that case, then the strategic choice would have been to have the Wolfguard Battle Leader not heroically intervene, because otherwise he would have been putting himself into danger. But really the fight was over once this Demon Prince made it into combat, because neither the Grey Hunters nor the Wolfguard Battle Leader are equipped for close combat. The Grey Hunters are equipped for mid-range to long-range combat, and the Wolfguard Battle Leader is really just there to buff the Grey Hunters and try to not give the enemy Slay the Warlord. So overall, it was an interesting game. Unfortunately, it didn't go so well for the Space Wolves. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next one.